This is JT with Bodyweight Strength, and in this video I'm not going to be talking about training at all. We're going to be talking about diet, and what I'm going to do is start a playlist with some continued content regarding diet, but before we get started in that, which will be basically how to set up your own diet from a macronutrient standpoint. So like, how much protein should you be eating? How do you look at your carbs and your fats and figure out how to distribute those things? So we'll get into that, and that way you can make sure that your training and your eating are working together, because you can train really, really hard, but if you're sabotaging yourself with a poor diet, largely you're going to be spinning your wheels. So we'll definitely address that, and that's kind of what this will segue into. But before we get into that, I figure I'd let you know what I'm personally doing and why. And keep in mind that I'm not advocating any specific diet as what you should be doing yourself. I'm going to teach you how to look at your personal goals, what you like to eat, and then how to basically structure a way of eating that will work for you, that's sustainable. Because at the end of the day, if you can't sustain a specific diet, then you 100% are going to fail. If you training's the same way, right? If you set yourself up with a training program that you can't sustain, you're setting yourself up for failure. And so setting up a system that is not sustainable is a surefire way to fail. And so we're not going to do that. We're going to look at how to set up something that you can stick with and that you can continue to stick with over time, and it's something that will work for the long haul, basically for a lifetime. So with that being said, since December of 2018, I've been eating a carnivorous diet. And so what that means is everything that I've eaten has come from animals. There's almost no plant matter in my diet. When I say almost, I do season my meats liberally for flavor. And so there is like paprika and some powdered pepper and garlic salt and things like that. For the first 30 days that I did a carnivore diet, I only used salt. And the reason that I did this way of eating, and am doing this way of eating that sounds super extreme to a lot of people and sounded super extreme to me, is because I had some health issues that had developed. I had GERD, which is gastrointestinal reflux disease. When I was 21, it started to come on. I had an esophageal ulcer. I couldn't swallow. I went to get an endoscopy done. And so when they stuck this camera down my throat, they found the ulcer. They prescribed Prevacid, I think it was. I took that for, 21 days or whatever. The ulcer healed up. And what happened was, after I would eat meals and throughout the day, I would have to clear my throat repeatedly, and I would have reflux, but it was more of what they call a silent reflux. I didn't have this extreme pain. I didn't have this burning sensation. It was more like throat clearing. And what happens is you have this little flap that basically closes the stomach and keeps the food in there, and basically food's coming back up into the bottom of the esophagus. It's not a good situation to be in, because over time it can lead to increased risk of different things like cancers and stuff like that. So long story short, I had dealt with this for about 20 years, 19 or 20 actually, now that I think back. 21, I'm 39, so it's like 19 years going on 20. And I stumbled across some studies, newer, that were published in the last year or two, and they basically concluded that a low carbohydrate diet was an effective treatment for GERD. So I had been low carb in the past, on and off. I've done intermittent style fasting since 2009 or 10, and what I was doing, however, was more of a 1 meal a day style intermittent fasting. And so that was not ideal for my GERD, because by fasting for 18 hours or more, what happened is then when I would go to eat, I'm eating these big voluminous meals, and most of the times they contain carbohydrates, plenty of vegetables, plants. So I'm consuming this big volume of food, which is aggravating my GERD. And when I went to a ketogenic style diet, which I'd done on and off over about the past 2.5 years, my GERD symptoms would be at their lowest point. And now once I read these studies, I realized it's because on a ketogenic style diet, I was actually eating 2 to 3 meals a day, not 1 meal a day. And when I'm doing this, I'm eating smaller meals, less food volume, and so basically less stuff coming back up, aggravating the GERD. And so a ketogenic style diet was the best treatment I'd found for GERD, but it was not perfect. I still had issues with it. In addition to GERD, I had skin issues. So for about 3.5 years, I was getting red scaly patches in between my fingers. Even when I went keto, which again I mentioned I did mostly throughout about a 2.5 year period leading up to this carnivore change, the skin issues, even though the GERD had improved, the skin issues got worse. So I had cut out grains, I'm eating keto, which is very low carbohydrate of course, and moderate amounts of protein. And what happened is I started getting oozing blisters in between my fingers, the red scaliness, itchy stuff between my fingers was getting worse. My forehead around my hairline started to develop red itchy splotches, so my skin was progressing. And so what I was doing is I did research and found a common thread with people who had skin disorders, autoimmune disorders, was dietary triggers. So what I started doing was I eliminated like nightshades, so I cut out tomatoes and eggplants, which I was eating a lot of eggplants on a ketogenic style diet. I started reducing plant matter because those are the most common triggers for skin issues. But I was under the train of thought or the impression that I needed to have a lot of leafy green vegetables for health. So during this time, while I'm ketogenic, what happened is my skin, like I mentioned, is getting worse. But what I started doing was eliminating all these vegetables, but I stuck with spinach. In my mind, I looked at micronutrients and green leafy vegetables, and basically I was conditioned to think that vegetables are good, and the more vegetables the better, and it's not dose dependent, right? Just the more vegetables you can stuff in there, the better off you are for health. And so I was buying these 3.5-pound bags of spinach at Costco, which is a lot of spinach, and I was eating most of that bag every week. So every day before lunch, before dinner, if I was home, I would do a huge spinach salad with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, salt, pepper, and a half an avocado. Then I would eat whatever meat or whatever my meal was going to be. So lots of spinach salad, and my skin continued to get worse. And so probably November 2018, I stumbled upon different carnivore people. I'd seen them in passing on Twitter and on social media, but I just thought they were crazy. Because in my mind, no vegetables equals not healthy, right? Pretty simple. And so I wasn't the type of person that thought, animal products were bad, because I've always eaten a fairly animal heavy diet. I know that the micronutrients are more easily assimilated, the body prefers them. So I wasn't thinking they were crazy because they're eating a lot of meat. I thought they were crazy for omitting vegetables. And so, but I started to, meatheals.com, I think, and looking at just different people replying on threads. And I started seeing people that had autoimmune skin conditions, they had Crohn's disease, and they had various autoimmune type issues, who were seeing like incredible results when they went carnivore. And so I recognized that a carnivore diet is basically an elimination diet. You're getting rid of all plant matter. And so it's not that eating the meat itself is healing you, per se. What's happening is if you're eliminating something that is causing a problem for you, then identifying getting rid of that food is giving you a pronounced, benefit. So long story short, I thought that it was crazy to completely eliminate vegetables long-term for health reasons, but I recognized that people were getting results with similar issues to mine, so I decided to give it a shot for 30 days. So around late December at some point, I don't know the exact day, of 2018, I eliminated all plants, which was basically at this point just avocados and spinach. And once I did that and switched to all carnivore-based meals, my GERD within a few days was pretty much gone. And I say pretty much because if I eat a large volume of food, so like if I do a OMAD or 1 meal a day and I fast and have a huge dinner, even if it's by volume mostly fat and protein, right, doesn't take up a lot of volume in the stomach, I get GERD issues, although not nearly as bad as if I were to include plants and grains. So for me, I played with it, and I've worked out that 2 to 3 meals a day is what I do now and what I have done throughout this time period, to keep the total volume of food at any one time from being very high, because with my activity level, I've got to eat quite a bit of energy, quite a bit of food. So if I was sedentary and eating way lower calorie, way lower energy, I could probably get away with 1 meal a day and carnivore, but that's not the case. So what I'm doing is 2 to 3 meals a day since December. The GERD improved immediately, and within a few days, the itchiness and scaliness in between my fingers started to improve. Within like 3.5 weeks, it was all but gone. I still had a pink patch between my ring finger and my middle finger, and then by about a month and a week, that was completely gone. I have since had 0 skin issues. The redness around my hairline is gone, no itchiness, no scaliness. So my initial experiment, I decided I was going to do 30 days to see if my issues improved, which they did. And I did not necessarily expect them to completely resolve, although that did happen. So here I am, 7 months later, going on 7+ months later, and I'm still maintaining this way of eating, primarily because of the improvements in my skin or the remission of the issues with my skin and with my GERD. But going into this, I was very concerned with a lifetime of not eating vegetables, right? Is this something that's sustainable over a lifetime? And while I'm not advocating everybody else go run out and do what I did, I have come to a conclusion that I am comfortable with this way of eating. If I have to stay like this forever, I do feel that it can be very healthy, and I do feel that from a longevity standpoint, from a general health standpoint, which are my primary concerns. I've got 2 kids. I want to live a long time for them. I'm not concerned with being the biggest guy or the strongest guy. I do enjoy strength training, but my focus is longevity, and my focus is optimal health. And so that's what I designed my own program for. My own basically workouts and eating and everything else are designed around trying to stay as healthy as possible for as long as possible. So with that being said, I do think that this way of eating is something that I can do long term and stay healthy. However, I don't think that health is directly tied to omitting every vegetable forever and not having any plants in my diet. I'm not dogmatic. I don't think I need to do that forever. And I'm actually going to be adding in, basically one at a time, some plants to my way of eating. For example, I'm going to add garlic to my ground beef. And what I'll do is I'll do garlic for a week and eat ground beef a few times that week, see how my skin is. And if I don't have a bad reaction, then I'm okay with garlic in my ground beef. I've already been using garlic powder and garlic salt for the last few weeks to kind of test small amounts and see how I did, and no flare up, skin is fine. So I'm going to test garlic, and then after that, I've already started onion powder, no issues. So then I'm gonna throw fresh onion in my ground beef. Garlic and onion are 2 vegetables or plants, whatever I guess what you wanna call them, not necessarily all plants are vegetables, but garlic, onions, chipotle peppers, and avocado are the only 4 plants I've missed. I've had 0 desire or 0 craving for any other vegetable. I don't want to snack on cucumbers. I don't have any desire to eat any other vegetables, but I have found that when I make ground beef, I would love to chop those things up and throw them in there. And if I can do that and not have any issues with my skin, then I'm gonna do that. Like, I'm not dogmatic. I don't care if I'm 100% carnivore or if people don't wanna call me a carnivore. Like, I really don't care. I just care about being healthy and thriving, and 100% to me, a meat-based diet is the way to do that. But if I can supplement that meat-based diet with a small amount of plants and have no negative effects, then I'm all about that. With that being said, the primary reason that I feel that this way of eating can be very healthy for a lifetime is because of the fact that it's very low carbohydrate. And I'm not anti-carb, and I think that depending on the person, you can actually eat quite a bit of carbs and still be very healthy. And so I'm gonna make some content to get into that and talk about the differences, because every person is a little bit different, and you're going to have to figure out what sounds right for you, what feels best for you, which way your energy levels are the highest. Like, I do think there's some genetic variability or some variability by the person. And so I'm basically just gonna tell you in a little bit more depth and in some concurrent videos why being a metabolically healthy person, right? I could go eat carbs, I could eat sweet potatoes, I could probably have that stuff on a regular basis. But the reason that I'm not going to, and I don't, outside of fearing that maybe it's gonna make my skin flare up, but I'm gonna dig into why that's not the way I feel my training. And you're gonna see most people who are, really fit or strength training or whatever, you're gonna see them generally eating quite a bit of carbs. And so I just wanna get into talking about why I don't do it that way, why I haven't done it that way in a long time, and why I'm not going to do it that way ever. That doesn't mean I'm never going to eat any carbs. I don't know 100% what I'm gonna do a year from now or 2 years from now, but I will share if things change or what I'm doing based on research and things like that. I'll totally share that with you. But that's where I'm at now, 7 months carnivore, skin issues clear, GERD clear. Outside of those 2 things, which is why I did it, my energy levels are very high, super consistent throughout the day. My training has not suffered. In fact, it's gotten better than ever. So I can see that for myself, I don't need to carb up to train hard. I don't need pre-training carbs or post-training carbs or any of that stuff to have efficient training sessions, to be strong, to be productive. And prior to this carnivore, since December, I had backloaded carbohydrates. I've eaten 40, 40, 20 as far as ratios. I've eaten high carb, I've eaten low carb. My performance was not better when I was eating a carb heavy diet. It was not better when I was eating 40, 40, 20. I perform as well as ever at almost 40 sans carbohydrates. So again, the whole point of this video is not to tell you that carbs are evil, right? Carbs are gonna mug you and take your wallet or anything like that. They're just a tool. Carbohydrates are a tool. A low carb diet can be a tool. You generate ketones. Ketones are an incredible tool, and I'm gonna talk about that. They're not just an energy source. But again, I know this video is already getting long. I don't want it to be overly so I'm going to wrap it up, and I want to create content that's beneficial to you guys so that you can learn from it and help you make better decisions. So if this video was beneficial to you, if you learned something from it, sound off in the comments below. Always give me your feedback to let me know what I can do better, or what kind of content to create. Because again, I want to make this stuff for you, to benefit you, so that you can hopefully make better decisions in your own life and learn to optimize what works best for you. We're different people. What I do is not always going to be what you should do, but if I can explain the reasoning behind what I do, it may help you think, hey, I want to do that myself, or try it. Or it might make you say, hey, my training's totally different. I want to do the opposite of this guy. So that's really my desire, and the reason for creating this diet content is just to help share information and to help you make the decision that works best for you, not to copy the decision that worked best for me. So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you for supporting Bodyweight Strength. If you haven't subscribed already, click the subscribe button, click the little notification bell so you are alerted of when I create content. And thank you for bearing with me. I definitely appreciate it.